But it does take me that long to get it going on Facebook. So let me get it going on Facebook first. Go live on Facebook.
You know, this is more fun than you really ought to have on a Tuesday. That's all I'm saying. This is as good as it gets, Mike Green.
I know it. That's how I feel every Tuesday morning. As good as it gets. Okay. Oh, you're recording.
I am.
Oh, good.
That's all right. I'll edit it when we get, to that point.
All right. So that does answer the question that yes, we can be live and recording.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm so grateful because today's topic is going to be fascinating.
I think so. State and local taxes and how they impact professional practice. March 26th. All right, I'm going live.
All right, it's great to be live. Are we ready now?
It is, yes.
All right.
To Facebook. Hey, we're at 10 o'clock too.
Terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to our weekly webinar on where to put a practice. And today's topic has to do with some of the factors that we're seeing that are affecting where practices are viable and where they're not, where the opportunities exist and where they don't. And it's kind of turning out to be a little bit different than what we had considered, and I'll explain as I go through our little program this morning. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And every time I do that, I take my life into my hands that I don't look like an old guy trying to figure out where he put his false teeth. Okay, hang on. All right, here we go. Mike, can you see the screen with the?
It looks fantastic. You did a great job.
Thank you. It's a little bit like I've used this term before, like a dog that can walk on its hind legs. It's not so much that it does it well; you're just amazed that it can do it to begin.
Do it at all? Yeah, exactly.
All right. Now we're talking about the state and local tax changes that were part of the Trump tax cut. Nobody was expecting it was going to have the big effect that it's had upon where to put a practice. So I'm going to jump right into this thing. The Trump tax cuts really basically are a change in tax deductions. So it increased for some people how much they're be able to deduct, and it actually cut for the very wealthy in very high tax states what they can deduct, and it's having an impact upon the patient base and upon doctors. Now, here's the deal. I'm not going to talk as much about the direct financial impact upon doctors. I mean, as far as how much they're having to pay or save. It's really about where to put a practice. So that's our topic today. Everything right now is up in the air because the effect that this has had in the United States has freaked out demographers all over the place. They hardly know what to do with themselves. So here's what the impact is. The rich are fleeing these states, and I'll go through the states in just a minute. In other words, it's happening far faster and to a greater degree than anybody was suspecting. So when you're trying to figure out where do I put a practice, a lot of places that would normally have been considered in play are not, and other places that were not are. The transition is faster than anticipated. See, that's the deal. One of the things about this thing is people were sort of assuming it would take 2 or 3 years for the changes in the tax code to be implemented and the impact upon consumers. It's not. The flight is more localized than at first thought, meaning that there are discrete places within the United States that this phenomenon is having a big effect. So let's talk a little bit about it. Certain states are losing billions, by the way, in tax revenue because of it. Now, when state and local taxes changed, we were sort of assuming people would figure out how to adjust them, and even there was the consideration that the states themselves might adjust how much they're charging. So let's just keep something in mind real quick, and I'll come back and repeat this. When you were able to deduct all of your state and local taxes, those states that had high state taxes were essentially being subsidized by those states that didn't. Those states that didn't have high taxes, well, their people were paying a fair amount, kind of a lot. But the federal government, Donald Trump, said that's not so fair. Why should those states that have these high taxes get a benefit by being able to write these off? And it hurts the federal government's revenues. But the governors came back and said, wait a minute, we're going to lose a lot of money because we can't collect as much with people leaving our states. So here are the states that are being most affected: New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, California, Massachusetts, Illinois, Maryland, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Now, I'm sure you're not surprised about this at all. This has actually been something that has been going on for more than 20 years. The high tax states have been losing population because the high taxes. I mean, we've all known this. They used to refer to Massachusetts as Taxachusetts. California has always had a little leakage of people leaving the state. Nobody was counting on it happening this fast and this this dramatically. Now, there was a term that a lot of these same states had. Well, we need to make the rich pay their fair share. We need to tax the wealthy in order to justify a lot of social programs we have. Well, as soon as they did that, the rich got a call from their bookkeepers and accountants and said, hey, get out of the state and get out now. Many of these people have multiple locations in different states. So what a lot of them have done is they simply said, hey, you got a house in Florida, make that your primary residence. The problem is the states that I've just mentioned here on the screen have all of a sudden come into a big enforcement thing, and they're saying, prove that you live there, and because we believe you still live here. And here's one of the ironies. It's actually your dog. Where your dog is kept is considered where your real home is. And so people are sort of saying, my dog lives with me in Florida or Nevada or wherever the taxes are lower. And they're saying, okay, how else can you prove that's where you really live? And they said, it's where my dentist lives. So people are all of a sudden considering, if I go to a dentist in a low tax state, it proves that's really where I live. Incidentally, you may also be interested to know that is a significant issue when it comes to child custody. People are saying, well, do you want to have your kid move out of state? Yeah, but their dentist lives in this particular location. Our veterinarian lives in this particular location. And that's how people are proving where they're living. Now, here's what's weird about this and why I want you to hear this. The 2020 census is going on next year. Now, they're gearing up for it in 2019, but next year, the initial responses are going to come in. And they, by the way, one of the things they do is they count how many people there are in an area, how big your house is, how many cars you have, all these facts about consumers. But remember, the thing they ask first and foremost is who lives here. Now, if people are all of a sudden leaving a state, and by the way, this has accelerated how many people are leaving, it is really going to change a lot in terms of the census. Now, remember, the census is originally really given in the United States to try to find voting blocks. The larger the number of people in a particular voting area, that get more or less representation. Now, the deal is it's a big shift starting next year. It's almost too late for the normal people to move, but the rich moved overnight, and that's what's making people a little scared. Florida is going to have more congressional representatives, more congressmen, than New York State for the first time ever. And that's making people in New York a little concerned, and people in Florida kind of go, hey, great. Texas is going to get at least 2 more congressional seats. And some people are saying probably 3. Now, this whole thing about are we going to be tracking citizens or non-citizens in the census? Will you be able to respond to that? Everybody may think, oh, well, that's great because the blue states are going to love that if they get to count non-citizens. Except when you consider how many non-citizens have moved to Florida and to Texas. And that's making people in those blue states a little bit nervous all of a sudden, where they hadn't been nervous before. The other fact is these states with high taxes are losing billions of dollars as the people who they were charging most are leaving. And they're seeing a genuine decline in their tax revenues. Now, you probably already know that most taxes are paid by the wealthy. The poor pay no taxes, and the middle class, somewhere in between. But it's the rich who these states have been depending on. And by some estimates, the top 1% pay 25 to 50% of all state taxes. That's scary for them. The rich and their money are moving. It's not just the rich people. They're taking their money with them. Now, if they happen to go to a state like Nevada or Texas or Florida, where the taxes are lower, that means those people are they're moving their homes, but they're moving their small businesses and they're moving assets there. They're hiring staff there. So it's more than simply, we're losing a population. You're getting a lot of money in those lower tax states. And the rate in which that's happening is amazing. Red states, though, this is important, are becoming less red. So Florida, the governor's race, the Senate race, it was much closer than people thought it was going to be. Beto O'Rourke did remarkably well in Texas, but Senator Cruz kind of pulled it out. And people are saying, yeah, but is he going to be able to do that again next time? I don't know, maybe. But what they're saying is there's less of a slam dunk because the red states are the ones with the lowest taxes, and that's where people are going, and they're bringing their attitudes with them. Question is, are they going to be able to get their neighbors to vote for policies that are essentially liberal that they didn't think were going to be the case? So this is making a little bit things thrown up in the air and no one knows what's happening. Now, the shifts are going to last for at least 10 years. Demographers are saying it's going to take a decade to shake itself out. But the biggest change is in 2020, and that's when everybody's sort of freaking. The prices of houses and business properties, includes healthcare practice sites, is going to change. Now, one of the things that people are actually looking at is the distance between home and an office for a professional, any kind of doctor. There actually is a movement to have that go back to what it used to be. Now, people used to practice in their basement or in an attached building to their home. All of a sudden, that's becoming more popular, especially because the red states, which have more liberal utilization policies for the most part, are changing. The large employers are also changing locations. Now, we've talked ad nauseum about the Amazon plant in Queens that all of a sudden disappeared. But the one that's in Virginia, which is, more or less a liberal place that they're putting it, that's a big deal. But the one in Austin is not. And they're kind of saying all these new businesses are going to be in places where there's a little more looseness, if you will, in order to set up businesses, including small practices. But the prices are changing. Large employers are going to consider or figure out that the cost per employee is the reason that they should go someplace, not real estate. So we're seeing places like in between San Antonio and Austin. That whole strip of land there is likely to be developed into one huge city because the property is inexpensive and it's inexpensive to hire and maintain people in those areas. The differences between the states' economies is going to be a big deal. Now, what I mean by that, take an example of California and Nevada. You know that they're right next to each other, but the population centers have not been close by. Except now Reno has all of a sudden grown significantly. Las Vegas is growing significantly right up to its border. And when that happens, it's not hard for people to say, I'll just move to the lower tax state or the place that I can afford to get a nicer house. And that's where we see a lot of weird pressures going on. Now, this is happening in lots of states, including Illinois and Indiana. You literally can live in Indiana and commute into Chicago on the train. It's very easy. But the cost in taxes and the property values are so different that the panache that Illinois used to have saying, hey, we're cool, we're greater Chicago. It's kind of losing it when people are saying, I can't live in a reasonable place. I've got to live in some cracker box, and I'm paying through the nose for my taxes. So what we're seeing is those states that are right next to each other are having a greater effect than we thought ever would happen. I don't know what's going to happen in states like New York State. But I do know that a lot of people in Rhode Island have simply said, we don't want to live here anymore. And they don't want to go to Connecticut. So they're going to other contiguous states, even Massachusetts, that has a lower tax rate. So, but also remember, we're talking about the state and local taxes. There's a big difference between some counties and other counties. And we're seeing that people are making a very rational decision on where they want to go. Now, the changes are not likely to come from government bodies. A lot of people were assuming, and I frankly think the federal government thought when they announced this, that the states would lower their taxes. And they're going, no. We want the revenue. And now that the rich are moving out, we're going to do everything we can to retain that. Now, guys, it is not like high-tax states are going to discover religion and kind of go, we need to change our policies. But what it does mean is they feel so locked into what they're doing that they have to continue forward with all these spending programs because essentially it's part of their welfare system. You also heard about California losing its bullet train. The governor said, we're not going to do it. And then the federal government said, oh, okay, well, we want that money back that we gave to you. And they're going, wait a minute, we need that money. Well, you're not building a train. Why do you need that money? So what's happening is there's a lot of tension built up that nobody expected. And those places that were supposed to benefit from the bullet train and from other big government programs are all of a sudden having a come down. There's a real concern that practices won't be able to survive in those places because the population numbers aren't increasing. There is, therefore, hostility towards states or between states due largely to the fact that these taxes are going to be a big issue. There's also, middle class is going to make its move in the next 2 years, by the way. The rich move this year, next year, and the year after. The middle class people, particularly those who own businesses and maybe practices, are going to say, gee, we don't want to be taxed out of existence. We're moving. We're hearing a lot of this. Now, by the way, one of the things that we offer is telephone consults. Quick and easy way to get those numbers on other locations. Think about it. Now, the high birth rates in states are surging. There are some states that have far greater children coming along. Now, if you happen to be in Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut, not seeing those. If you happen to be in the South, they're having not a big boom in babies, but they're having a far greater number. And that is affecting the distribution of federal dollars. And so we think there's going to be even more tension between the states. The high birth rate states are going to continue to surge, though, because people are saying, hey, I want to go someplace I can afford a house where I can have kids. And that's human nature. The market ultimately is going to decide where there's growth, not politicians. So don't listen to the government programs in the state capital. Listen to what demographers are saying about where people are going. Now, if you want to know where to put a practice, you're going to have to make this by projection of the demography. So we're doing more and more work looking at where those places are changing and changing favorably for our dentists and our physicians and our veterinarians. My gosh, all of these are responsive to the market, not to politicians. Now, again, we got a new edition of the general dental practice site selection, how to choose where to go. So go to dentalpracticeinsiders.com and the student services are also available for you folks, but you can register for the book as well. Mike, take it away.
Okay, Scott, I will. So just clarification on that. So you can go to dentalpracticeinsiders.com/student if you're a student and you would like to get a student report.
That's what I meant. Because
I knew that's what you were getting to. But
leave me alone. I'm old. Kids, get off my lawn.
So if you're a student, you want to take advantage of that, especially this time of year. And we are seeing a lot more students that are entering the market. And so it's a great opportunity for you to be able to do that. Now, Scott, I can only talk for so long before you turn your presentation off so that I can turn mine on. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Oh, you want me to get off? Is that what you subtle like a train wreck, Green?
I'm trying. I'm really, really trying. So, it's interesting, Scott, as you were talking, that isn't it interesting that money is the thing that ultimately decides everything? You know, it doesn't matter if you're politically aligned with the local government or with the state, or even if you have generations of family that's lived there. If you can't thrive there financially, you're going to leave. And that is what we're seeing in so many states. And it was interesting, every one of those states that you mentioned pretty well has a counterpart state that's bordering it, that's benefiting from what's happening. So if it's, like you mentioned, if it's California, it's Nevada. If it's, Illinois, it's Indiana. It's really interesting how that's happening. Now, for you doctors that, and we've talked about this a lot, we're not trying to freak you out if you're in one of those states, though you may want to be thinking, 5 or 10 years ahead. There's still opportunity to thrive where you're at. You just need to be more intentional about what you're doing, and know that you probably are not going to be able to rely specifically on population growth as your indicator. And from my perspective, that just means that you need to become a more competent marketer, because you have to take advantage of the population that's already there. Right? Okay. Scott gave me the thumbs up. All right. Well, I want to share something really quick for you. I've got about 10 minutes here that Scott graciously left me, and I want to talk about marketing specifically to the rich. And this is a really interesting topic because it affects so many different locations within the country. Even if you are in a meat and potatoes area, usually we find a sector of your population that would be considered the rich. And so I want to talk about that because almost every doctor says, hey, yeah, we're doing really well with our middle class people or the majority of people, but I want to be able to get a little piece of this action with the people that have more money. And so if that's the case, and if that's you, which again is probably in many of you that are watching this, I want to talk about just a couple of things that I think will make a big impact on the way that you approach your marketing. All right, why is it not showing up here? Scott, are you seeing that? I'm having a PowerPoint issue.
Well, I'd like to turn some time over to Mike to do an interpretive dance because that's kind of on your end, Mike.
Yeah, it is. I see it coming over on my one screen, but my words are not coming over on my. Oh, there we go. I don't know why all those were white ahead of that. Well, let me give you the secret of what it is that was above that. So again, like so many other populations, you still got to know the psychographics, and we talk about this almost every single week. The psychographics are such a key part because even within the wealthy, there are different factors that made them wealthy. Are they wealthy because they work all the time? Both mom and dad are always in the city and they're working long hours. That's going to impact the way that you market to them. Are they wealthy because family money and they're trust fund people? Well, that's going to really impact the way that you're marketing to them. Are they old and they've just at that stage of life where they have the money? Again, that's going to impact it. Are they part-time residents? And like Scott was just talking about, a lot of time the wealthy are playing this game of I've got 3 houses and I'm moving different places. They may only be in your market for a short amount of time. And so if that's the case, you can still be really successful, but you've got to know that about them and obviously when they're there. So, and the last thing, again, is to develop a campaign, and this is kind of where my lifestyle increased focus pops up there, but you want to develop a campaign that I call a me campaign, because typically it doesn't matter what psychographic profile they fall into, they typically are at a stage of their life where they're me focused. And I don't mean that in a negative way. That doesn't mean that they're selfish. It doesn't mean that they're don't care about the little guy, but they are in a place where they can invest into themselves and create opportunities to do a few things. One, can you show them that you can give them more time? So again, if they're working long hours in the city, you've got to be able to show them that you are going to be a convenient practice. You are going to give them more time, and they're not going to have to spend the time with you. Now, again, for your meat and potatoes patients, you're going to charge them your fee, and they're going to pay that fee. But for the wealthy, they often think about that in a different way. They're thinking, if I was at work for this hour and a half that I'm at your practice, I would have made this amount of money, but now I'm having to spend this much money. And so again, time efficiency becomes very important when you're marketing to the wealthy. And that leads us into give them more value for their money. You've got to prove to them that the dollar that they spend with you, that they give you, they're going to have more value that's going to come with that dollar than what they would do if they spent it with the other guy. And so that is a key thing that you've got to build into your campaigns, is that you're going to show them the value truly of what they're spending it on. You've got to give them status or prestige. It should be a experience for them to go to you. It should be that they are going to the best doggone oral surgeon in the tri-state area. And if you convince them that that's the truth by the way that you present yourself, your marketing, and your interactions with them, that's something that the wealthy look for. Is they want to look for status. They want to look for prestige. And that goes from everything from where they shop. They're not shopping at Walmart, they're shopping at Whole Foods, all the way down to who they go to the dentist and who does their who takes care of little Fido. That it's all about status and prestige, and that's okay. But you've got to know that in order to market to them successfully. The second thing is you've got to be able to create an experience-focused campaign. You've got to not just run them through like you're a corporate dental office, because they won't stand for that and they will go find somebody else. You want to give them, often, and lots of practices have done this, give them the spa experience, right? It's truly about them and their experience and their happiness and their value of their time and money that they're spending with you. The other big thing is you can't have any funny business billing. You just can't do that. These are savvy people who are dealing with finance and a huge percentage of their time every single day. And so if you're doing some kind of tricks or funny business is what I call it, with your finance and your billing and that kind of stuff, they will see through you very quickly and you will never see them again. So the other part is campaign delivery, and that's what I want to spend really the rest of my time with talking about. Many practices, many doctors are surprised when they're asking me about how to market to this segment that's wealthy. And the first thing that I'm talking to them about is Facebook advertising. Now, I don't know why it is or what it is that makes us common folk believe that the wealthy aren't on Facebook. The truth is that's not the case. They are lumped in, and we're going to look here at a few minutes, ever increasing to the amount of time and effort that they're on Facebook. Now, this is just as a whole, as showing from 2004 to 2017. And yes, is Facebook slowing down a little bit in its growth in certain sectors? It absolutely is. But if you look at that jump from 2015 to 16 to 2017, it's still moving forward, and it has, just for perspective, about 2 billion active users, as opposed to an Instagram that has about 700 million, which is, again, huge numbers, right? Lots of really, really big numbers. But Facebook is still the behemoth in the world right now for social interaction and social influence. So let's look at gender and age. That's another common misconception, is that it's only the young that are on Facebook. Well, the truth is, it is predominantly the 18 to 29-year-old demographic. 88% of them are on Facebook. But let's jump down to 65 plus. 62%. Now you might say, gosh, that's almost 40% that aren't on Facebook. True, but I would say 60% of those people are on Facebook. 75% of those are men, and 83% of those are women. And so age is not a factor. Now let's talk about education and income, because that's where we play into their status and their wealth and their community. Are they on Facebook? So here's the surprising thing. Yes, the poor and the uneducated, and that sounds really bad, but that group is, yes, they're spending too much time on Facebook. Yes, they need to get off Facebook and improve their life, definitely. But you'll look all the way over to the 75,000 plus, which would be considered wealthy, because that goes up to infinity. 77% of those people are on Facebook. 79% of college graduates are on Facebook. This is a huge market influence possibility that you have as a practice owner to influence these people. The secret to marketing is to deliver your message where people already are at, not to convince them to come over to where you want to talk to them. And so that is why we're not recommending you advertise in a phone book anymore, because nobody's looking at the phone book. They're on Google, they're on these different places. Again, 77%, 83% of the wealthy demographic is on Facebook. I'm still convinced that it's the best value for your dollar that you spend in marketing. But here's the key. You've got to understand the difference between paid traffic that you're going to run through Facebook and organic traffic. That is the magic, and that is the key. When I talk about Facebook advertising, most doctors that I talk about think and assume that all I'm talking about is posting on their Facebook feed and occasionally boosting it. That is organic, frankly. And there is a whole world, a much more effective world, and a very inexpensive world right now in terms of marketing to create a fantastic lead generating system into your practice. Now, that's not to say that you can't be successful with organic traffic. Matter of fact, it's very, very simple to do. And I'm going to share that with you in just a second. But the paid traffic side is more complicated, and you probably do need a little bit of help, which we can provide. But for the organic side, I'm going to throw out a challenge. I have a organic social media guide that I've created that's fantastic for doctors. It's more business in general, but very, very applicable for doctors as well. I will give viewers of this webinar, this training, for free. All you have to do is email me at mike@drdemographics.com, and I will send you the link. It's just a Facebook link to this particular guide. It's a video that I did. It only takes about 15 minutes to watch. This will help you segment your organic social media strategy to be very effective and lead generation focused. Now, if you want help on the paid side, which is really where things can get really heated for your practice and get patients through the door, let me know through my email. We have some great options there and some great trainings that Dr. Demographics can provide on the paid side. Scott, I'm out of time.
Okay, I just want to go back. Many of our viewers are watching this on Facebook. Let me make sure everybody understands we do this as a way to build our own organic score because we're offering content on this side. This isn't like paid advertising, although we do some payment to distribute it more broadly. That's a fact. That's why you boost a post. But it's the content that you're offering that is really what's going to help your ratings, I think, and make you credible. That's why the more that the doctor and staff actually get there and are posting things, just like Mike will tell you in this guide, it is a remarkably valuable thing for you to do and a good investment with your time. Absolutely. I am so sorry we are just out of time. But Mike, what a brilliant thing, and I hope everybody will get that guide.
Mike@drdemographics.com.
Right. I'm not sure I'm getting any money out of it, but, it's free, right?
You are not. That's for sure.
Jeez Louise, Mike. I mean, come on. Man's got to eat. I got kids in school. All right. I want to thank everybody. We'll see you next week, and we'll look forward to talking to you then. Take care.